Welcome back, Defenders. Jake here. It's Parade Day. May 9th in Russia is their Victory Day celebration. This is Russia's most important holiday. So let's check in and see how the parade went. In Victory Day's speech, Putin says Russia's future depends on troops in Ukraine. Putin stated that a war has been unleashed against the Russian people. The goal of the enemy is the destruction of our country. So the purpose of May 9th, it's supposed to honor the sacrifices of the World War II generation. And Putin spoke for 10 minutes and barely mentioned World War II and barely mentioned veterans. All he did was air his usual grievances, complaining how everyone in the West is now Nazis, everyone's Russophobes, everyone in the West hates Russia, and how everyone should join the Russian military to go fight and die in Ukraine to expand the borders of the empire. Long live the empire. And as an American, I don't really understand the appeal of military parades. Here in the United States, we don't do military parades. It's something that dictators kind of do. And the number one reason why we don't have parades in the United States is active duty service personnel don't want to do them. To spend 2 weeks prepping and preparing for a military parade, that's 2 weeks you're not doing your regular job. When I served on active duty, I had a real job. I had responsibilities. And to take time off of work to go have a parade, it's just kind of a waste of time. So the United States does find ways to honor our veterans. We have a special assignment called the Color Guard. These individuals attend public events to honor the sacrifices of our veterans. In addition, we have military flyovers. And this is because the pilots need to practice flying anyways. If they just practice flying over a football stadium, then everyone gets to see some cool planes. It's a win-win. But should we be having tanks rolling down public streets or in front of the White House? And that's kind of ridiculous. So here is the full broadcast of their military parade. It was streamed live by South China Morning Post on YouTube. I'll link it down below if you want to watch it for yourself. And before we get into the specifics of the parade, I want to welcome the sponsor of today's video. The sponsor of today's video is Blinkist, and the team over at Blinkist reached out to me because they know I'm a veteran, and they want to show their appreciation for veterans as the month of May celebrates Memorial Day. Now, if you don't know what Blinkist is, it's a website and mobile app that condenses over 5,500 nonfiction books and podcasts into 15-minute what they call blinks. Let me share with you their website. They offer an impressive range of bestsellers, constantly adding new titles to their catalog every single day. These are the 27 categories that you can listen to and learn from. They've got entrepreneurship, politics, health and nutrition, personal development. What I like using Blinkist for is listening to their blinks of books that I read years ago, usually over breakfast or lunch. As an example, 4 years ago, I read the book Tribe by Sebastian Junger, and their blink is a thought-provoking analysis of the human need for community and belonging, something relevant to veterans returning home after serving their country. So with Memorial Day coming up, Blinkist is offering a special to people who follow this channel. Click the link down below for a 7-day free trial and get 50% off Blinkist's annual premium. Offer is valid until May 29th. Thank you so much to Blinkist for sponsoring today's video. So going back to Russia's military parade, there wasn't a whole lot to see. Mostly just Russian men in their service uniforms getting sweaty, marching down Red Square. Where's the stuff, Russia? Where is your cool equipment? And the only tank they had in the parade was an antique T-34. Let me share with you the video of this. And Russia chose not to have any tanks other than this T-34. So you just know this Russian tanker who was selected for this assignment was thinking to himself, am I going to look stupid being the only guy in a tank and it being a T-34? And yes, you look stupid. Here's the joke online. There are farmers in Ukraine with more tanks than this parade. Putin's Red Square parade gets roasted. Russia's May Day parade was a pale shadow of the good days. Tanks and military jets were missing in action. Putin just complained of Western Russophobia and makes a tone-deaf comment about respecting sovereignty. So if the Russian military parade reflects Russia's current combat capabilities, I understand even better why Russia is threatening the world with nuclear missiles. It's the only thing they have left. So going back in time a year and a half, on paper, Russia claimed they had 12,000 tanks. Where are your tanks, Russia? All you got for your military parade is a single T-34? You couldn't get out of storage 20 or 30 more modern tanks to put in your parade? Same thing with aircraft. They probably still do have hundreds of planes left, but they just closed the skies over Moscow, and anything like a drone flying was going to be instantly shot down. So no tanks and no planes. And there was speculation that Putin was not going to attend. He was going to give his speech by video prompter. There's also speculation that this was the body double and not the real Putin. But I actually believe this was the real Putin who chose to attend the event. Moscow was completely locked down, and Red Square has been locked down for weeks in preparation for this parade. In addition, Putin took hostages. Leaders of 6 former Soviet republics joined Putin on Victory Day. He made sure that these other heads of state were close by him for the entire time, so if anyone tried to attack Putin, they would also be attacking the leader of one of these other countries. It is interesting that there are 14 former Soviet republics, only 6, I'm sure all of them were invited, but only 6 chose to attend. And the most curious thing about these other leaders is Lukashenko. His press secretary admitted that he was having health problems. But look at this bandage on Lukashenko's hand. Kind of concerning. Maybe he's getting sick. Putin had a dinner with the other, ex-Soviet country leaders, and Lukashenko did not attend. I don't know what's going on with Lukashenko. He might be sick. But I imagine that the ideal scenario for Putin is that Lukashenko dies. The Russians might even be slowly poisoning him. And the reason why is Lukashenko is keeping his military out of the war. If Lukashenko were to unexpectedly die, more than likely Russia would just annex all of Belarus and then start mobilizing and conscripting their population to send them to Ukraine to fight. So it's really messed up that I'm hoping for Lukashenko to stay alive, because he is keeping Belarus out of the war directly at the moment. It's weird. So how are the Ukrainians choosing to observe May 9th? And President Zelensky signs decree making May 9th Europe Day, proposing to celebrate Victory Day on May 8th. This makes sense because Victory in Europe Day, by all the other allies, the day they choose to recognize the defeat of Nazi Germany, it's on May 8th. For everyone else, it was only the Soviet Union and Russia that chose to do it on May 9th because with the signing ceremony, they had the Germans re-sign it at midnight, so it carried over to the next day. It's stupid. But I think May 9th in Ukraine and for the rest of the world should be forever recognized as hey, the Russians were allied with the Nazis at one point. Here's an article headline from September 17th, 1939. Russia enters war by invading Poland. Soviet formally joins forces with the Nazis. Communist army begins drive into Polish area. The Russians now have a truce with Japan, alarming diplomats. Russians cross frontier, keeping their pledge to Hitler. The Soviets allied with the Nazis and had no problem with them up until the Nazis stabbed them in the back. May 9th should also be the day that everyone remembers that the Americans saved the Russians' asses in World War II. So for 4 years, under the Lend-Lease program, this is all the stuff that America sent to the Soviet Union. 400,000 trucks, 7,000 tanks, 11,000 aircraft, 35,000 motorcycles, 1,900 locomotives, and 4.4 million tons of food. Do the Russians really believe they could have defeated Nazi Germany without the help of the Allies, without the help of all of this stuff? And to perfectly illustrate what the Ukrainians must be feeling or experiencing on May 9th, I highly recommend this clip from, I think, Yale professor Timothy Snyder. So I don't want to just play a small clip because I don't think that does it justice. This is 2 minutes long, follows up here, minute 40 and minute 30. I'll link this thread down below if you want to watch it for yourself. He articulately explains the situation. But let me give you a quick summary. When the Nazis attacked the Soviet Union, only 5% of Soviet Russia was ever occupied by the Germans. Only 5%. But 100% of Soviet Ukraine was occupied by the Nazis. So in June of 1941, the Nazis attacked the Soviet Union. And by July of 1942, the Nazis controlled 100% of Ukraine. They conquered 100% of Ukraine in 1 year and then held on to it. They occupied it for 2 years. So Soviet Ukraine suffered immensely more than the Russians, than Soviet Russia. 8 million Soviet Ukrainians died in World War II, which is more than Soviet Russia lost. When you think about total casualties of the Soviet Union, you have to factor in the other Soviet republics. So what Russia is doing by demonizing Ukraine, calling them Nazis, claiming that they alone are the ones who single-handedly defeated the Germans in World War II, there's no other way to describe it other than stolen valor. In the United States, this is actually a crime to embellish your service record, to lie about your military history. And this is what the Russians are currently doing, revising history to make themselves look as good as possible and completely discredit and diminish the sacrifices that Ukrainian soldiers made to the Soviet Union during World War II. All I can do is share a cartoon. Comrade launched the anti-Nazi missile, and it just goes back to the Kremlin. So let's check in on the front lines, and the city of Bakhmut continues to hold. Sort of, not really. But Ukraine is still holding on to a part of the city, and they denied Putin the propaganda victory. Putin ordered Sergei Shoigu like a month ago to take 100% of the city by May 9th. Putin wanted that line in his speech saying that they successfully captured Bakhmut, but they couldn't do it. They couldn't take 100% of the city. And I don't really understand what's happening with the Wagner Group anymore. Every day, Prigozhin seems to change his story. So this article is from May 7th, and it's titled Wagner Group to Get More Ammo After Bakhmut Pullout Threat. So Prigozhin, if he wasn't going to get more supplies and ammunition, he was threatening to completely pull out of Bakhmut. But then he said, no, everything's good. We're going to get more ammunition. So this was 2 days ago. And this morning, Prigozhin claims deception and threats from the defense ministry. There's talk that if the Wagner group tries to pull out of Bakhmut, they're going to be fired on by the regular Russian military. They're not allowed to leave the city. But they're also not being resupplied. So it's kind of a lose-lose situation for Prigozhin. He knows it. I think this is a deliberate effort from Shoigu and Gerasimov to basically kill off the rest of Prigozhin's soldiers. Keep them in Bakhmut, use them for these human meat wave attacks. Doesn't really matter if they have proper support or ammunition. Just get rid of them. Shoigu doesn't want Prigozhin being around anymore. And here's a video from this morning, and Prigozhin looks pretty alarmed.
Поэтому у нас армия бежит. Бежит, потому что 72-я бригада сегодня просрала 3 квадратных километра, на которых у меня погибло порядка 500 человек, потому что это был стратегический плацдарм. Они просто взяли и драпанули. А как вы слышали, факел, голубой факел, анальный факел, такой специальная пробочка в жопу, они разбежались точно так же, как и 72-я бригада. Это факт.
That's why our army is fleeing? I mean, I don't know how the language can get any more clear than that Russia is not winning this war. So with horrible performance on the battlefield, Russia continues their long-range drone and missile attacks. 2 days ago, Ukraine shot down 35 out of 35 Shahed Iranian drones. Unfortunately, when you shoot down an explosive drone, it still lands and hits something. So unfortunately, 4 civilians in this drone attack were killed, but Ukraine did successfully shoot down 100% of the drones. And then because it's May 9th and Russia was feeling festive, they decided to launch another missile strike. Kyiv attacked once again overnight. Russian missiles intercepted over capital. Ukraine's armed forces said Russia launched a total of 25 missiles across the country, 23 of which were shot down, so greater than 90%. That is fantastic news. And Russia, with their missile attacks, they're shifting their focus. Russia shifting missile attack strategy to target Ukraine's logistics. A representative of the main intelligence directorate explained that the attacks are aimed at disrupting the Ukrainian army's offensive actions. So not just this. They're going after agriculture and food supplies. So initially, yes, it was the power grid. Now that it's summer, they don't want to do that anymore. So this is a horrifying news story. A missile attack last night destroyed the Red Cross Society's warehouse in Odessa. A civilian security guard was killed. Hundreds of tons of humanitarian aid for Odessa residents were destroyed. Russia's priority target is now civilian objects. They blew up a Red Cross warehouse full of food. The pictures and videos are online. This is Russia's strategy. Just blow up the Red Cross food warehouse. I'm literally speechless at this. And the only thing that this clearly communicates is that the Russian military doesn't believe it can defeat the Ukrainian military. They have a limited supply of these long-range missiles, and they could be using them to go after valid military targets. But the Russians think that's pointless. They don't think that would accomplish anything. That's not going to defeat the Ukrainian military, hitting military targets. So they're going after Red Cross food storage depots. The Russians are just pure evil. On top of that, in anticipation for Ukraine's counteroffensive, Russia orders partial evacuation across the front lines. So Russian occupation authorities are conducting evacuation from the city of Tokmak. And basically in the Zaporizhia and Kherson region, they're pulling all of their puppet government leaders out of the cities. They're pulling them back to the Sea of Azov or to Crimea proper. They think there's a possibility that if Ukraine attacks, they're going to lose territory. They're going to lose cities. They're going to have to push back. So they're pulling all of the people out of this region, including the Ukrainian civilians living under military occupation. So here's a video that went viral online showing that Russian soldiers are forcing all the civilians in these cities to push back to the Sea of Azov or to Crimea. Just horrifying. On top of that, Russian occupation forces in Zaporizhia are looting the areas. Anything that's not bolted down, they're just stealing. So for sure, all the washing machines are being taken. Anything from the occupied territories of value, the Russians are stealing because they're criminals. What else is Russia doing? Russia is beginning to force mobilize residents of the city of Mariupol. So the Russians completely destroyed the city, killing tens of thousands of residents. These people have then lived under military occupation for more than a year. And now Russia is force conscripting Ukrainian citizens to use as cannon fodder on the front lines. Here's a conscription notice that a resident of Mariupol shared online. So I'm sure you're feeling it too. This counteroffensive from Ukraine cannot come soon enough. But the number one determining factor when it'll happen is the weather. They need it to dry out a little bit more. They need for clear skies in order to not get stuck in the mud. Additionally, every day they wait, Ukraine gains further resources from Western allies, and Russia just gets a little bit weaker. And a component that Ukraine is missing is long-range strike capabilities. Report suggests Ukraine could soon receive Storm Shadow missiles from the UK. In addition, GLSDB from the United States is on the way. Earliest it could show up is June, but I think for sure it'll be in Ukraine's hands by August. So that'll be a game changer once Ukraine has a missile capability farther than Gimler's with the HIMARS launcher. Here are some other quick stories you should know about. Russia restores rail traffic on the controversial Crimean Bridge. So the Crimean Bridge was attacked last October. That was 7 months ago. For 7 months, this has been Russia's top priority to fix this rail line, and I mean, it took them 7 months. I don't know if that's good. That doesn't sound good when you're fighting a war and this rail line is literally the most important thing you need operational. And if Ukraine's counteroffensive is successful and they reach the coast to the Sea of Azov, the bridge would be in HIMARS range, and it'd be a shame if something happened to it. Belarus introduces border controls for travelers from Russia. The border authority in Belarus has begun setting up temporary checkpoints at its land borders with Russia to screen arrivals from its neighbor. There has been virtually no border control between Belarus and Russia since 1995. So why is Belarus doing this? And as conscription notices go out, mobilization in Russia occurs, Russian men might try and flee to Belarus in order to hide. So Belarus is doing this at the request of Russia. Pretty interesting. We got good news for Ukraine. Poland has officially delivered 10 additional MiG-29 fighter jets. Fantastic, Poland. I love it. 14 promised Mi-8 helicopters from Croatia have arrived. 9 were flew, and then 5 were transported by land. So thank you so much, Croatia. Ukrainian military personnel are currently training on Leopard 1 tanks. 80 Leopard 1s from Denmark and Germany are expected to be delivered to Ukraine by June 1st. So thank you so much, Denmark and Germany. Here's an interesting infographic. They updated where they think all the Ukrainian refugees are, how many refugees have been taken in by each country. And Germany is now number 1. So there are more than 1 million Ukrainian refugees currently residing in Germany. Per capita, though, Poland still has taken in more people given their size. Same with Bulgaria and the Czech Republic. But thank you so much, Germany. Thank you so much, everyone in the EU. Final couple feel-good clips I have for you. The first one is that the zoo in Kharkiv has officially reopened. Because of the invasion and the constant shelling, they had to shut down the zoo, but as life in the city of Kharkiv returns to normal, they finally were able to reopen the zoo, and here's a line of people waiting to get in. A fun activity for the whole family, something that the kids can do in a time of war. Final clip I have for you is a Ukrainian father and son, both currently serving in the military, being reunited probably after not seeing each other for a while. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.